Once upon a time, in a quiet village near a dark forest, there lived a young hunter named Kofi. He was kind and hardworking, but very lonely. Kofi dreamed of finding someone special to share his life with. Every day, he would go into the forest to hunt for food for the village. One evening, as the sun was setting, he heard a soft voice singing. It was so beautiful that he followed it deep into the forest. Kofi reached a small clearing and saw a woman sitting by a river. She was the most beautiful person he had ever seen. Her name was Adisa. Adisa smiled at Kofi and said, "Why are you here, young hunter?" Kofi was shy but managed to say, "I heard your singing, and it brought me here." Adisa laughed softly, and they began to talk. Kofi visited Adisa every evening after that. She always waited for him by the river, and they would talk and laugh for hours. Kofi felt happy for the first time in a long time. One day, Kofi asked Adisa, "Will you marry me?" Adisa looked at him with sad eyes and said, "If you truly love me, promise never to ask about my past." Kofi agreed, not knowing the secret she was hiding. Kofi and Adisa had a beautiful wedding. The villagers were surprised because no one knew where Adisa had come from, but they liked her kind and gentle nature. They celebrated with dancing, singing, and a big feast. Kofi was the happiest man in the village, and Adisa seemed happy too. But deep inside, she was worried. One night, as Kofi slept, Adisa quietly left the house. She walked into the forest and disappeared into the shadows. Kofi woke up and noticed she was gone. He waited for her to return, and when she did, she looked tired and sad. "Where were you?" he asked. Adisa smiled and said, "Just taking a walk. Don't worry." One of Kofi's neighbors, an old woman named Amma, started to watch Adisa closely. She thought something was strange about the new bride. Amma told Kofi, "Be careful. Your wife is hiding something." Kofi didn't listen. He loved Adisa too much to believe anything bad about her. After a year, Adisa gave birth to a baby boy. Kofi was overjoyed. He named the baby Kwame and promised to be the best father. But strange things began to happen. Sometimes Kwame would cry loudly at night, and Adisa would take him into the forest. When they returned, Kwame would be silent, and Adisa would look pale. Amma followed Adisa one night to see where she was going with Kwame. She saw Adisa sitting by the river, whispering strange words. The water began to glow, and a shadowy figure appeared. Amma was terrified and ran back to the village. She told Kofi what she saw, but he still didn't believe her. "Adisa is my wife," he said. "She would never hurt our child." Amma decided to warn Kofi again. "You must ask her about her past," she said. "You promised never to ask, but now your child's life may depend on it." Kofi was confused. He loved Adisa, but he couldn't ignore what Amma had said. That night, he decided to watch Adisa closely. One night, Kofi woke up and saw that Kwame was missing. He ran outside and saw Adisa walking toward the forest with the baby in her arms. Kofi followed her quietly. He saw her go to the river and place Kwame in the water. The baby didn't cry. Instead, he began to glow. Kofi watched in disbelief as the river began to glow brighter, and strange figures rose from the water. They looked like shadows, but their faces were clear, and they stared at Adisa with cold eyes. Adisa whispered, "Here is the child, as I promised. Please let me stay a little longer in this world." The shadowy figures nodded and disappeared into the water, taking Kwame with them. Kofi wanted to shout, but fear held him back. His heart pounded as he silently followed Adisa back to the house. She acted as if nothing had happened, but Kofi couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, Kofi couldn't stay silent any longer. "Adisa, where is Kwame?" he demanded. Adisa looked at him with sad eyes and said, "He's safe. Trust me." Kofi grabbed her hand. "Tell me the truth. What are you hiding? Who were those figures by the river?" Adisa's eyes filled with tears, and she whispered, "I warned you never to ask about my past." Kofi felt anger and pain, but he softened when he saw her tears. "I love you, Adisa," he said, "but I need to know the truth. Please." Adisa turned away, her shoulders trembling. Adisa finally spoke. "I am not like other people," she said. "I died many years ago, but the river spirits brought me back to life. In return, I must give them something precious every few years." Kofi was shocked. "You're a ghost?" he asked, stepping back. Adisa nodded. "I didn't mean to hurt you or Kwame. I just wanted a chance to live and love like a normal person." Kofi's heart broke. He loved Adisa, but how could he accept that his wife was a ghost? And what would happen to Kwame? Kofi ran to Amma's house and told her everything. Amma listened quietly and then said, "You must save Kwame. The spirits won't stop with just him. They'll come for you too." "But how?" Kofi asked desperately. "Adisa is still my wife. I don't want to lose her." Amma shook her head. "She's already lost, Kofi. You must protect your son." Amma gave Kofi a charm made of dried leaves and bones. "This will protect you from the spirits, but only for a short time. Use it wisely." That night, Kofi waited until Adisa was asleep. He took the charm and quietly left the house. His heart ached, but he was determined to save Kwame. As he approached the river, the air grew colder. He saw the water glowing faintly and heard whispers all around him. The charm in his hand began to warm up, giving him courage. Kofi called out, "Give me back my son." The whispers grew louder, and the shadows rose from the water again, their eyes glowing red. The spirits spoke in deep, echoing voices. "You dare challenge us, mortal?" they asked. Kofi stood firm. "Kwame is my son. You have no right to take him." The spirits laughed. "Adisa belongs to us, and so does the child. If you want him back, you must give us something even greater." Kofi's hands trembled, but he shouted, "Take me instead. Let Kwame go and take my life." The spirits paused, whispering among themselves. Before the spirits could respond, Adisa appeared. "No," she cried. "Don't take Kofi. Take me instead." Kofi turned, shocked to see her standing there. "Adisa, no," he said. But Adisa stepped forward. "I've caused enough pain. Let my son and my husband go. I'll return to the spirit world willingly." The spirits nodded. "Very well," they said, "but there is no turning back this time." Adisa looked at Kofi one last time, tears streaming down her face. Adisa walked into the river, her body glowing brighter with each step. Kofi tried to stop her, but she smiled and said, "Take care of Kwame. Tell him I love him." As she disappeared into the water, the spirits released Kwame. The baby floated gently to Kofi's arms, safe and sound. Kofi held his son tightly, tears falling from his eyes. He whispered, "I'll never forget you, Adisa. Thank you for everything." Kofi returned to the village with Kwame. Amma welcomed him back, relieved to see them both safe. The villagers listened to Kofi's story in awe and fear. Life slowly returned to normal, but Kofi often visited the river to remember Adisa. He would sit by the water and tell Kwame stories about his brave and loving mother. Though the river spirits were gone, Kofi always kept Amma's charm close, just in case. He knew the power of the unseen world and vowed to protect his family. Years passed, and Kwame grew into a curious and cheerful boy. Kofi worked hard to raise him, teaching him how to hunt, fish, and take care of the land. But Kwame always felt something was missing. "Papa, where is my mother?" he asked one day. Kofi paused, unsure of how to explain. "She's watching over us, Kwame," he finally said. Kwame didn't fully understand, but he trusted his father. He often sat by the river, feeling a strange connection to the water, though he didn't know why. One night, Kwame had a dream. He saw a beautiful woman standing by the river, calling his name. "Kwame," she said softly, "be brave and kind, always." Kwame woke up and ran to his father. "Papa, I saw a woman in my dream. She called me by my name." Kofi's heart sank, but he simply said, "It was your mother, Kwame. She loves you very much." Kwame smiled, feeling a warmth in his heart. Though he couldn't remember her, he felt close to her in a way he couldn't explain. Strange things began to happen in the village. Crops wilted overnight, and the river's water turned muddy. The villagers were frightened and turned to Amma for help. Amma told Kofi, "The spirits may not be finished with us. We need to be careful." Kofi nodded, worried about Kwame's safety. Meanwhile, Kwame overheard the villagers talking. "Papa?" he asked. "What's happening to the river?" Kofi hesitated, then said, "It might have something to do with the spirits. Stay away from the river for now." Despite his father's warning, Kwame felt drawn to the river. One afternoon, he snuck away to see it for himself. To his surprise, the water was calm and clear. As he sat by the riverbank, he heard a faint voice. "Kwame," it whispered, "you are stronger than you think." Kwame looked around but saw no one. He ran back to the village, unsure of what he had just experienced. But something told him that the river still held secrets he needed to uncover. The next morning, Kwame noticed a strange mark on his hand. It glowed faintly, like the light of the moon. He showed it to his father, who looked alarmed. "Kofi, what is this?" Kwame asked. Kofi took a deep breath. "It means the spirits have noticed you," he said. "We need to protect you." Amma gave Kwame another charm and warned him, "Never take it off, no matter what happens. It will keep the spirits away." That night, the shadows returned to the river. They whispered loudly, and their voices reached the village. Kofi woke up in a panic, holding Kwame close. The spirits spoke. "The boy has the mark. He belongs to us." Kofi shouted back, "You cannot take him. You promised to leave us alone." But the spirits only laughed. "The boy has his mother's blood. He is ours by right. The villagers gathered, frightened by the echoes in the air. Kwame looked at his father and said, "Papa, I won't let them take me. I'll fight them." Kofi hugged him tightly. "You're brave, my son, but you're still a child." Amma interrupted. "The boy has a special connection to the spirits. He may be the only one who can truly face them." Kofi shook his head. "He's too young." But Kwame insisted, "I can do it. Mama told me in my dream to be brave. I'll protect our family." Kofi reluctantly agreed, though his heart was heavy with fear. Amma led Kofi and Kwame to the sacred forest, a place where the spirit's power was weaker. "Here, we can prepare for what's to come," she said. They gathered herbs and created stronger charms. Amma also told Kwame stories of his mother. "Adisa was brave, just like you," she said. "She sacrificed everything for you." Kwame listened closely, feeling proud of his mother. He promised himself that he would honor her courage by standing up to the spirits. As the family prepared, the river grew louder. The spirits began to show themselves in the village, haunting the villagers and demanding Kwame. Amma told Kofi, "We don't have much time. Kwame must face them soon." Kofi struggled to stay calm, but he trusted Amma's wisdom. Kwame, meanwhile, felt a strange mix of fear and strength. The mark on his hand glowed brighter each day, reminding him of his connection to the spirits. One evening, Kwame went to the river alone. "I'm not afraid of you," he shouted. The water rippled and the shadows appeared. "Brave little boy," the spirits said, "but bravery will not save you." Kwame held up his charm and the spirits hissed, retreating slightly. "I will fight for my family," Kwame said firmly. The spirits laughed, but deep down, they knew he was different.